Share Shootout brought to you by Lion of Africa Insurance, insuring South Africa's future.
It's bruising, gut-wrenching and unforgiving. The search for the channel's best stock picker on television continues right here on Share Shootout League. I'm Bruce Whitfield. Now, in the light of the Abbott CFR deal, did Adcock shareholders lose out? And who's been swapping crib notes? Why are South Africans the most highlighted court cases going to mental institutions? And does Julius Malema really wear Louis Vuitton undies under those famous red overalls? And now we don't know the answers to any of these baseless questions. What we do know is we've got an SSO league that gets more heated by the week. Let's take a look at the activity on Twitter from last week's battle between the Scot and the value guy. This is how it's changed the league standings. We've got Sid, who is the Maverick, who's sitting there on 3 points. Chris, the Scot, on 3 points as well. Look at that. And then you go down to the bottom of that list, of course, and you go and have a look at last place. And at the bottom feeders, the bottom of the pond, in the muck, sits Bucks, who is Sasha, who is playing tonight. He's on a big fat round 0. And we've got Lavan, the good guy, who is maybe the good guy, but he ain't playing so good either. And then, of course, Neo, the 1, and Nick, the value guy, who's just creeped out of the bottom feeders, and he has got himself 3 points. The veterans are leading the young guns. Ultimately, it'll be you who decides who wins this league and who looks like a complete and utter idiot. You vote by using the competitor hashtags, plus of course the handle at SSO League. This week we have a man who single-handedly claims to have broken up the Soviet Union. He then came to work in Africa. Goodness, hopefully Africa comes off better than the Soviet Union did. He goes by the name of Bucks, and that's exactly what he owes me. 20 of them. You'll find out why in just a moment.
Stand by for action.
My name is Alexander Naryshkine, but Sasha is short for Alexander. Call me Sasha, please. Everything from answering the phones.
Oldfield? Yes, I've heard of that company.
To attending to client emails. To, make payments, everything. We like to answer our own phones because when someone phones, strangely, they want to speak to us. Ignore lots of the noise in the short term. Buy the quality and stick with it for as long as possible. Get inside Bruce's head just to try and confuse him as much as possible. Yeah, and act like Carl Icahn. Outrageous. Like, this board is pathetic. I've never seen such a useless board. When, of course, it's someone else's pick. Yeah, that's how I think I'm going to win. Yeah, but you mustn't tell my competitors. Warren Buffett. No, I'm kidding. Has to be Bruce Whitfield. He's way too clever for everybody on this show. So if I can beat him, I'll be happy. I just need to beat Bruce. Then I think I'll win this league. Yeah.
And the reason why the most allegedly feared man on the show owes me 20 bucks is we had a small bet on a previous show in a previous life where one of us said that the EFF would take a hung and kick its pants off at the elections.
Say that, Bruce.
What did we say, Sasha?
You said that one would get more votes than the other.
Well,
I thought it's ridiculous that there's so many loony people, but there are over 1 million people who do, in fact, vote for the EFF. So I thought they'd vote for Ahang, but she imploded. So effectively, it's 10 rands per seat that Ahang got in Parliament.
Okay, so that's the 20 bucks. Now, I would like you to take this 20 bucks, please.
Yes.
Keep it.
Because it is the last 20 rand that I have, because I'm always fully invested.
Because you are a genius and you're very good at that. Maybe out of next month's paycheck, I'd like you to take that 20 rand. I'd like you to multiply it by a factor of 10, because you failed.
Just leverage it up by 10.
You failed to possibly predict that Ahang could implode. So your punishment there, I would like you to take 200 rand, and I would like you to pay it to the Starfish Foundation, of which I am a patron, and I would like you to donate 200 rand to charity in memory of Ahang.
Okay, I'll do exactly that. So next time I'm on.
Get yourself something nice, 20 bucks, you buy yourself something nice, but 200 bucks out of your next paycheck before you are fully invested. And please, will you put that into the Starfish Foundation's coffers? Will you do that for me?
I will do that.
There we go, Sasha Naryshkine being a good sport. Loser. And another who enjoys lazy walks by the Durban beach, jazz and everything except the law, which he spent half his life studying for. He still dresses like a lawyer. You can't have everything go your way, I suppose. Let's check out the guy who goes by the name The Good Guy.
It's easy when you do it live because then you just keep flowing. Eh? My name's Lavan Gopaul. I'm the CIO with Trademar Futures. Because we're a futures trading house, a lot of it is trading single stock futures and the index. We try and be as swift as possible to get in and out of the market. So we look for gaps both up and down to take advantage of these moves for our clients. The game plan, it's a poker game, so you've got to keep a poker face, and we're going to be armed with all this knowledge and research, and we're going to be playing our strategy very close to our chest. So I think it's mainly a knowledge base more than anything. The biggest competitor's got to be Bruce Whitfield. He's always putting us on the spot and he steals all our limelight. I definitely think we've got a very good chance of winning the game. It's like playing poker. So we've got a very good knowledge of the market. We know all the stats and we know when to hold them and when to fold.
It's the battle of the bottom feeders on Share Shootout League this evening. Both the man who was feared at the beginning of the series, Sasha, and Lavan have been languishing at the bottom of the league. And I expect a dirty fight for those 3 points, because whoever wins today's league is lifted from the bottom into the sludge and into the muck at the lower end of the feeding chain of the cesspit and the cesspool that is Share Shootout League. Now, the house rules. Both of our guests have pre-picked 3 shares. Neither knows what the other holds. Each has got to accept at least one of their competitors' picks, and the longer they leave it, the more likely they are to have to accept something they really don't like. Each has got 30 seconds, blah, blah, blah. You know the rules. They have to argue their stock picks. They have to convince you that they are the stock picker's stock picker. They can pick from the JSE Top 100. They're limited to 1 international stock pick per month if they want to, from selected global indices. Now that the rules are known, let the game begin. You two are shameful. You are disgraceful. You are a discredit to your profession. You are the bottom feeders.
This is like Hyderabad Sunrisers taking on the Mumbai Indians, you know. They're building for next game.
Okay, there we go. All right. Well, don't stop playing like Bafana then, and let's get some decent results out of both of you. I want you to see your A game, Lavan. I want to see at least your C game, Sasha.
Okay.
You've got to build towards your A game at the very best of times.
Peaking.
I'm going to allow you to go first. Who would like to go first?
Lavan said he'd love to go first.
I think Lavan, because his stock picks are more interesting than yours, Sasha.
All
so,
right.
Lavan, I would like you to go first in 30 seconds to explain why you like the Facebook.
Okay, so Facebook is one of the largest social network success stories. The company's worth 155 billion. They have defied logic in terms of earnings delivery, and they've also been very innovative in terms of their acquisitions. They've played with related businesses. They've slowly been able to sneak in advertising and therefore deliver positive earnings. So you've seen something like 4 billion rand being paid out by $4 billion
There we go.
paid out with dividends.
There we go. Now, some of the biggest fans of Facebook when it listed before it collapsed and then recovered were our good friends at Vestact. Sasha, you looked a little bit silly for the first year of the listing of Facebook. You're looking less stupid now. You've got to like it because it's one of those that you do like.
At $60 a share. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Lavan doesn't actually need to say much more because I don't want to save the best for last. I'll sign. Look, I think you remember when they bought Instagram?
Yep.
Everyone laughed at that. Well, they're starting to monetize Instagram. Yes. Remember they bought WhatsApp? Oh, it's 500 million users. So is it kind of this time around their real eyeballs? When people compare 2 sets of historical times and say, it just feels like 2001.
But this
they're
is
actually monetizing the internet now and mobile.
What the Luddites are struggling to get their heads around is the fact that the internet,
look through Oculus.
the internet is a decade and a half older than it was in 2000 when the bubble burst. There are people who cannot live without their mobile devices. There are people who cannot live without their laptops and their computers. There are people who no longer don't know how they lived without talking gibberish to each other all day long using social networks. The world has finally
it's common
changed.
sense in 140 characters.
It's also probably an opportune moment that Facebook launched because you had technology that kept in step with the business idea. And so as we reinvent ourselves and we're able to communicate using video on our devices, it's going to take Facebook to that next stage.
At $60 a share, what's the multiple? It's crazy.
Forward it's closer to 35.
Still high.
It is high. It's probably somewhere around 50, 55 at the moment. So
all right.
Yes, expensive, and granted that you're buying the company on 50 years worth of earnings, but they're growing really quickly. I think they've just scratched the surface, to be perfect.
You're taking it.
I'm taking it.
It'll be cheap at $100 a share.
Yes.
It's like the famous brand story. It's like so many South African company stories where they've always been expensive. And of course, Facebook, you say it's cheap at the price. Sasha agrees with you. You can have that one, Lavan. You can bank it if you like. So, Sasha Naryshkine from Vestact. I'm interested because you're going to take that philosophy, that Facebook philosophy, and you're going to apply it to the other go-go, mad, crazy share that many of the critics in South Africa say can't possibly be true. Virtually everybody who's got a good common sense head on their shoulders says you've got to be nuts to buy Naspers. And they look very clever for about 2 weeks this year when the price went from $1,400 down to $1,000. But it's creeping back up again. 30 seconds why you like Naspers.
Problem is the same people have been saying that since 300-400 Rand a share. No, but let's not take a side swipe at them. Let's rather say, why would you want to own this business? Next big push is e-commerce, so that's why they've hired a Dutch fellow by the name of Bob van Dijk, who's ran eBay Germany. So if anyone knows e-commerce, it's Bob. Plus, you're getting quite a big discount because we're so clever down here. We're discounting what those people pay in Hong Kong for 10 cent, which is roughly, everything except 20 billion Rand. The DSTV business, which is old technology, is valued somewhere between 80 and 100 billion Rand.
Okay, now you're going to find it hard to shoot this one down, Lavan, because the same arguments that you use for Facebook are being used to value Naspers courtesy of the 10-cent investment. It owns 35% of Hong Kong.
33.85.
33.85, rounded up to 35, almost 35% of 10 cent, which came out with the most surprising trading update that the market has seen so far this year. And the Naspers share price rocketed 8% a couple of weeks ago in a single day, just to show that the pessimists perhaps are wrong on this. Are they? Or is Sasha completely and utterly mad?
It's a compelling story. I buy into the fact that as technology builds into the Asian subcontinent and as more Chinese players start embracing the technology available, Tencent becomes even more entrenched as a player. I'm a very, very strong believer in Tencent as a business and Naspers as well. And whilst you mentioned the old technology, that's also good constant revenue. I like Naspers and I'm willing to accept it, so I'll give it a thumbs up.
I mean, people talk about how Naspers is going to face huge competition from say, Apple TV and others. Anybody who's trying to have a telecom ADSL line installed in their home, and that's taken 6 weeks in order to get the line fixed and to get the 14 technicians from 14 different trucks with 14 different pieces of machinery with 14 different diagnoses.
You're having problems at home, Bruce.
No, well, certainly from an ADSL point of view.
Yes.
It's fixed now, but I'm too exhausted to go and bother trying to explore the world that has now been opened up to me. Connectivity in South Africa is a problem. Naspers still has that market cornered for years to come.
Yeah, but even then again, we're talking about the satellite TV business here. You're talking about satellite the future of
satellite TV.
Yeah, I mean, even when you hear Chris Becker speak, he speaks of it almost like a legacy business, which is weird because it's a massive money spinner, and on its own, it's difficult to value, but direct TV, so that kind of AT&T thing, probably if you use the same metrics, it's between 80 and 90 billion Rand.
Okay.
So roughly about a sixth.
But the point is, it's the 10-cent story we like. It's the 10-cent story that Lavan likes. He takes your pick. You have both 1-1 this evening. Now it gets more interesting because you're going to have to reject some very cunning strategic plays. Lavan, I'm interested in your next pick this evening, and it's the Barclays Africa Group. Market capitalization of nearly 132 billion Rand. It has rallied quite strongly along with the rest of the banking sector in recent weeks. The banking sector has had a very good run. You're not going long, though. You're going short on the Barclays Africa Group. I'm intrigued. In 30 seconds, tell us why.
So the theme, I believe, now is one of interest rates rising in South Africa, and you're likely to see probably a few more climbs in interest rates over the next few meetings. The big rationale behind going short is the fact that they've been giving out a lot of their earnings by way of dividends. So large payouts, and I'm thinking last year almost 5 billion Rand, which happened to coincide with a 5 billion Rand or so a fine that Barclays Home Office had.
ABSA, Barclays Africa, has become Barclays piggy bank. Oh, bit of petty cash
a
draw. Thanks very
broken
much.
piggy bank, and all the
He's
money.
having more than 30 seconds.
I know, but he's interesting.
All the money that would have been used to expand into Africa, they can't.
Regardless of how interesting you are, you do have to stop. Sorry, Lavan. Sasha, remember you are at the bottom of the league table. You really do need to work hard to lift yourself out of the quagmire.
Where the cheaters are.
Where-
Jomo Cosmos. So
there we go. Now you know how they feel.
Yes.
Barclays Africa. You guys at Vestact are not a fan of the banks. You think banks are lousy businesses. So to short Barclays Africa is an interesting play. I want to see you argue against to short on Barclays Africa.
Look, I mean, a good friend of mine actually works there in the upper echelon. So, no, I'm not going to agree with Lavan in the interests of this game. I think if you look at price performance, okay, and Lavan's pointed out why they've probably underperformed the market. They're flat, whilst some of their competitors are up between 20 and 25% over the last 12 months. So I think a lot of that's got to do with the integration part. And although their parent company is struggling a little bit, I think out of all the financial institutions who are best equipped to be able to expand quickest across the fastest and next frontier investment market, they're probably the most compelling. And I think the dividend underpin won't see the price go much lower.
So, just to respond, they're masters in terms of integration. As far back as I can remember, Volkskas, United, Allied, etc., that made up the old ABSA was integration.
Nobody who did
10 years
that's
later.
2 generations of management teams ago, though, Lavan. This is a management team that is doing it for the first time.
10 years after the Brits got involved, I think there's sufficient integration to the extent that a lot of jobs have been shared. So what we have now is a group that performed last year, all of that wealth being paid out, and then they come through and deliver pedestrian.
The short of Barclays Africa, Sasha in his heart believes that you're right, but he's not going to accept it. So you go long on Barclays Africa.
Dividend underpin, because we're talking about price performance.
But are you suggesting that we buy Barclays Africa today for the dividend flow?
Why not? I mean, they've indicated
fine.
that they're going to pay out a large amount, and I don't think earnings are going to be. They're going to be above inflation. And in fact, interest rate increases are not necessarily always bad for banks.
We need to move on. We need to move on. You are shooting down. He's short on Barclays Africa. Let's move on to your next pick this evening. And it is one of those companies, I mentioned it earlier, perpetually expensive. The 10 billion rand market cap of famous brands.
More now.
10 point something billion rand market cap of pizzas, hamburgers, and posh dining out experiences. Famous brands in 30 seconds.
Yeah, so this is a company that's managed to increase their operating profit by over 10% to beyond 20%. Compelling management team, they've strengthened it, got Santi Botha, who's now, the family has let go, but still strong shareholders, own a third of that business. Logistics and manufacturing businesses, that's the next big push. Plus also they're opening stores at a rapid rate. Gearing up across the continent, geographically looking more diverse, and middle income people spending more, even if they're having fewer items. So all in all, part demographic story.
You had an extra 5 seconds at the beginning because you were whinging about Lavan, okay?
Thank you.
There we go.
Thanks to your producer.
No, absolutely. They're the nice people on this show.
Yes.
Famous brands, hard to argue against it. I know one particular asset manager who I've humiliated enough in public, so I won't mention that, Sean Stockett, who now works at Momentum, would say at 12 rand it's too expensive, at 21 rand you must be crazy, at 40 bucks are you nuts, at 60 bucks, no, this is crazy. We're sitting at over 100 bucks a share on famous brands and still rising. Recent results come out, show that the market continues to have confidence in famous brands. We speak in generalizations here, Sasha, understand the rules. If it was up to me, you'd be losing already, but it's not. Our viewers have to make the choice.
I'd be at the bottom of the table always if it was up to you.
Oh, yes, you would, just for fun. Do you like famous brands?
Fast food, slow earnings. So what I'm thinking is...
20%.
What I'm thinking of is they've expanded by way of acquisition. Organic growth hasn't always been present. Yes, they've managed to collect quite healthy brands, and they've expanded globally. But on the soil, you're seeing a lot of competition. On the South African...
but you're seeing a South African demographic that is increasingly willing to go and spend 50 bucks on a hamburger.
And they now have more choices. They've
Where?
got
Burger King. They have 5 outlets.
There are more Volvo Tellers than there are Burger King.
Domino's is about to enter the South African market with Taste Holdings. So you're looking at that fast food pie becoming quite small.
Pie.
And
Mr. Bex.
No pun intended. So it's, of my opinion, the South African story is limited. They've had mixed success in the rest of Africa, so possibly a London expansion or Mideast expansion could help them. For now, it's something that I think is fully valued.
I would shoot down your frivolous arguments, and I would go with Sasha.
You're a burger lover, of course.
Do you eat
pizza.
burgers?
I love hamburgers.
Yeah. Who doesn't?
Can't you tell? Sasha Naryshkine and Lavan Gopaul this evening. Our contestants, you're shooting it. It's your
I'm
pick.
shooting down his argument.
Yeah, you're shooting down his argument. His argument is frivolous, but you're shooting down famous brands. You think
Correct.
it's run too hard. There we go, Lavan. That's where it brings us to the show, this point in the show. And do remember, this is where you decide who the winner is going to be. Stock picking, of course, is an art, it's a science, and it's really, really difficult to do. But you can sit at home and be armchair critics. You're in a wonderful position. So follow at SSO League on Twitter, and you vote either for Bucks, who is Sasha, or the good guy, who is Lavan. They both need the points very, very seriously. I will review their stock picks so far this evening, go into the final round so that you can make your superlative judgments tonight as to who should stay right down in the gunge at the bottom of the share shootout league. You're watching CNBC Africa First in Business Worldwide. This is Share Shootout League, the only league that doesn't have cheerleaders because we don't have cash. Now, this is match day 7, and these guys need your votes. So you follow at SSO League, you vote for either Bucks or the good guy. And so far, we've got Lavan, who is the good guy. Facebook and Barclays Africa, a short on that. Sasha accepted Facebook, shot down the Barclays Africa short. Sasha likes Naspers, so does Lavan, but Lavan doesn't like famous brands. Sasha, into the final round.
Yes.
You're using your offshore allowance, as I expected you to do.
Yes.
Baby talcum powder, Johnson & Johnson, 30 seconds, tell me why.
Well, I mean, it isn't essentially a consumer business. That's 20%. So it's 40% pharma, 40% devices and diagnostics. So that's where the big growth is going to come from. And you could get a value unlock from them unbundling their consumer business. You know, they spent roughly 11.5 to 12% of total revenue on R&D. So this is trying to get the next Remicade, the next big blockbuster drug that will drive it. So it's largely a global demographic story. There are more people who can afford expensive hip replacements, expensive therapies.
There we go. You can't shoot it down. It's impossible. Lavan, you've got to accept it.
I'm not accepting it.
Why not?
And my reason is the competition out there from Asia in particular means that a lot of innovation, a lot of new drugs have come to the market, and this is not just generic drugs. These are replacement within the same category.
Lavan, you're going to die. I've got the
R&D.
tried and tested Johnson & Johnson product. I've got this new thing that comes from Beijing that's kind of in trials at the moment.
That's why Aspen can win by putting made in Australia.
You've got 6 weeks to live. Which one are you going to take?
Sure, but you also see in the Eurozone deregulation for pharmaceutical companies. So you do have choices. You have the likes of Roche, you have GlaxoSmithKline, Beecham. All of these are big competitors to J&J.
Argue against that one,
I
Sasha.
think also
Well,
it's fully valued, and so is the Dow at this point.
Argue against him.
There's the old joke, you know, what's the difference between J&J and the USA? And one's got a AAA credit rating and one doesn't.
There's a triple bypass.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's the thing. But you don't like it, Lavan. You think there's too much competition. You think that Asia is going to come in and take over the global drugs market. You're shooting down Johnson.
I'm shooting
Johnson.
down J&J.
There we go. That's a mistake. It's okay, Sasha. You'll be fine. What's going to be interesting, though, is whether or not Sasha could possibly shoot down one of his favorite companies of all time, because you've played this one strategically. You love this particular company. Sasha, I know, likes this company. I want to see his face in the next 30 seconds as you make a compelling case to buy BHP Billiton.
Okay, so long on Billiton, commodities giant, very good commodity mix allocated towards energy, potash, various metals and minerals. They have also got a strong geographical presence, so you're getting risk split out between country and currency. At this stage, they also look technically set for a nice rebound, and as the currency floats into any weakness on the rand's front, you're going to see BHP Billiton pop above. I'd say at a 1.8 trillion rand business, it's cheap.
There we go, Sasha. I dare you.
You dare me? Well, in recent days, you've seen, you know, lots of stories about iron ore specifically, and you've seen the Australian budget. Have you seen the Australian budget?
I haven't seen the Australian budget.
They're really struggling down there. Why? Because exports to... So I buy the steel consumption story. I think what you have to ask yourself is whether or not we're going to get a re-rating in commodity prices like we got in a period where urbanization was taking place at a breakneck speed. So I think that urbanization story is still intact. But whether or not you'd rather own BHP Billiton over Johnson & Johnson, I guess that's for the viewers
but in the
to
resources
decide.
complex, but in the resources complex,
I'd rather
there
own
is-
Sasol.
You'd rather own Sasol than
Yes.
BHP Billiton.
Yes.
Okay.
So they've managed their portfolio very well, and whilst Sasol has been a previous stock pick of mine, I believe BHP
Mine too.
Billiton has got a very nice suite of commodities, and there's a fair amount of cross risk. You still have energy, and you have a number of other components that are going to buoy you in terms of earnings, as well as the fact that these assets have been bought some time back. So a lot of them
A compelling argument. I know
No, it
Sasha
is the
believes.
best. It is by far the best pick across the commodities complex. But in the interest of this game, I lost interest when he talked about technical analysis, because that's like Candy Crush, pattern recognition. And then secondly, you know, I mean, in recent days, we've actually been lightening a few, simply because there's a lot of angst and anxiety around iron ore, which is 55 to 60% of
That's
EBIT.
okay, Sasha. We'll buy your Billiton stock from you.
There we go.
That's fine. We've owned them in our portfolios forever and a day.
You've
too.
made your 500%. You've done okay
Yeah,
out of
we've
them.
done
Okay,
all
well, that brings us to the end of the show, because this is where your votes will count. And we're going to be counting those votes until midnight on Sunday. These guys need your votes.
Desperately.
If this was the island, one of them would be kicked off and into the pond. So follow at SSO League and vote for whichever one of these two guys impressed you the most. They've both had some fantastic stock picks this evening. They've both made some massively compelling arguments. Just to remind you before we go, Sasha Naryshkine from Vestact, love him. Naspers, Famous Brands, and Johnson & Johnson. Naspers got the thumbs up. Famous Brands and Johnson & Johnson were, however, shot down. Lavan Gopaul, who also needs your love, from Trademar Futures. He likes Facebook, Barclays Africa Group, short, and BHP Billiton, which is Sasha's favourite diversified miner, but he would rather own Sasol. We had Facebook accepted, Barclays Africa and BHP Billiton both got shot down. So it's the offshore picks this evening that got the thumbs up. More locally focused companies listed on the JSE did not. It's up to you to decide who will be dragged up from the bottom and who will stay down below. Join us again right here on CNBC Africa next Tuesday at 8:30 for Match Day 8. And we've got a long way to go before we crown a winner in the most ruthless stock picking show on TV. So both Lavan and Sasha are still within a chance if they can up their A game. Follow at SSO League. Give us your thoughts on the players, the league, and what you think about our cheap jabs that we take at their stock picks. Until next time, stay cunning.